When Lena told me she needed a break, I didn't even know what to say. We were sitting in her car, parked in front of my apartment. The air was heavy, quiet. She stared straight ahead like she was reading something on the dashboard. And then, without looking at me, she said it, "Ethan, I think we need some space. I need time to figure myself out." Her voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that means the decision's already been made. I remember watching her hand on the gear shift, fingers trembling just slightly. I wanted to reach for her, ask what was really going on, but the look on her face stopped me. It wasn't anger or sadness. It was detachment. I tried to joke, to break the tension. So, like a few days, a week, she shook her head. No contact. For a while, those two words, no contact, hit harder than anything else. It didn't sound like a pause. It sounded like an ending she was too polite to say out loud. I just nodded, said something like, "If that's what you need," and watched her drive away. The taillights disappeared around the corner, and I stood there in the rain until the street went quiet. The first few days were brutal. Every sound from my phone made my heart jump. I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking I'd missed a text, but there was nothing, just silence. I tried to tell myself it was temporary, that she just needed time, but then, a couple of weeks later, I saw her name again. Her mum, Deborah, posted a photo of them at brunch, big smiles, sunlight, mimosas. There she was, Lena, laughing like nothing had ever happened. The caption said something about Girls' Day, and she was tagged right there. I remember staring at the photo for a long time. She wasn't off the grid. She wasn't figuring herself out. She was just fine. She just didn't want me around. I didn't comment. I didn't text. But something inside me went cold. That night, I deleted her number. Not because I didn't care, but because I did. Too much. And if I didn't, I'd break the silence first. A few days later, her mum texted me, "Hey, Ethan, she's having a rough time too. Just so you know." I stared at that message for minutes, maybe hours, because either Deborah was lying or Lena was, and I wasn't sure which hurt more. After that, I started to notice things, names, posts, little pieces of her life still moving without me. One name showed up a lot, Ryan Keller, her co-worker. She'd mentioned him before, back when we were fine. "He's just funny," she said once. Now his name was everywhere. That's when I realized something. The break wasn't about her finding herself. It was about seeing if she missed me, and maybe she didn't. That night, for the first time, I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt clear. If she wanted no contact, she was going to get it. For real this time. It was about a month after Lena left when I saw her again. I wasn't looking for her. I was just trying to live like she didn't exist anymore. I'd started going to the gym again, eating better, even sleeping through most nights. For the first time in weeks, I felt almost okay. Then I ran into her. It happened on a Thursday evening. I was grabbing coffee on my way home from work, the same small place we used to go to on Sundays. I didn't even think about a just habit. I was waiting for my drink when I heard that voice behind me. Soft, familiar, "Ethan." I froze. For a second, I thought I imagined it. Then I turned around, and there she was, Lena. She looked different. Lighter, somehow. New haircut, new energy. Her smile was cautious, polite, the kind you give a coworker you barely know. I stood there, coffee in hand, trying to remember how to breathe. "Hey," I said finally. My voice sounded strange to me, flat, detached. She nodded. "You look good." It was such a small sentence, but it carried the weight of everything we didn't say. I wanted to ask where she'd been, what she'd been doing, if she'd thought about me at all. But instead, I said, "You too." There was an awkward silence. People around us were laughing. Music was playing softly from the speakers, but between us, it felt like the whole room had gone still. Then she glanced over my shoulder, and I saw him. Ryan Keller, standing near the counter, ordering drinks. She didn't introduce him. She didn't have to. I could see it in the way they stood close, in how her body leaned slightly toward him. It was subtle, but it was there. Ryan looked up, saw me, and smiled that casual, harmless smile guys use when they think they're being friendly. "Hey man," he said. "Lena's told me about you." That line hit like a blade, sharp but quiet. I smiled back anyway. "I'm sure she has." He extended his hand, and I shook it. His grip was firm, confident. The kind of handshake that says, "I'm comfortable here, and you're not." Lena looked between us, uneasy. "It's good to see you, Ethan," she said. "Really? Yeah," I said. "You too." And then I walked out. The moment the door closed behind me, I felt the weight of it, all the noise, the smell of coffee, the memory of every time we'd sat at that same table talking about our future. It all came crashing back like a wave I wasn't ready for. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry, just hollow. That night I drove without thinking. No destination, no plan. Just roads and headlights and too much silence. Eventually, I ended up at the Overlook just outside of town, the place Lena and I used to go when we needed to talk. I parked, turned off the engine, and sat there in the dark. For the first time, I said it out loud. She's gone, and not in the dramatic, maybe she come back way. No, she was really gone. The next morning, I woke up with a strange kind of calm, like something in me had settled. The truth was ugly, but at least it was clear. I stopped checking her socials. I stopped wondering if she missed me. But life has a way of testing your resolve. A week later, I got a call from Deborah, her mum. I hesitated before picking up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Ethan, hi," she said, her voice warm as ever. "I know this might be awkward, but would you mind helping Lena with something? She's moving apartments this weekend, and I think she could use an extra hand." For a second, I thought I misheard her. "You want me to help Lena move?" She didn't ask, Deborah admitted quickly. "I just thought it might be nice. Closure, maybe." I almost laughed. Closure, that word people throw around when they want you to do something painful and call it healing. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said finally. She sighed. "I understand. You were good for her, Ethan. I wish things had been different." When I hung up, I sat there in silence. Her mum meant well, but she didn't know. She didn't know what it felt like to see someone you love move on while pretending they're still lost. That night, I poured myself a drink and sat on the balcony, watching the city lights blur in the distance. Somewhere out there, Lena was probably unpacking boxes with Ryan. Maybe laughing at something stupid he said. Maybe thinking she'd made the right choice. But for the first time since it all started, I didn't feel like chasing that version of her anymore. The Lena I loved was gone, and the one who replaced her, I wasn't sure I ever really knew. About 3 weeks after, I ran into Lena at that cafe. Life had started to look normal again, or at least I'd convinced myself it was work. Gym, cooking for one, sleep, repeat. The quiet had become my routine, and I was learning to live with it. Then Mark, my best friend, and the guy who'd seen everything between me and Lena, sent me a text out of nowhere. "Hey man, you know where Lena's working now?" I stared at the screen for a second before replying, "No, why?" He sent me a screenshot, a company post from LinkedIn. "Welcome our new project assistant, Lena Dawson." The company name hit me like a punch, Ryan Keller's firm. I just sat there, watching the pixels on my phone screen as the words sank in. So that's what finding herself meant. I let out a dry laugh, the kind that doesn't sound like humor at all. That night, I did something I promised myself I wouldn't do. I opened her Instagram. It was still public. Her latest photo was taken in a bright, minimal office. She was smiling, really smiling. Caption, "New beginnings." Ryan had liked it. Her mum had commented, "So proud of you, sweetheart." I tossed my phone onto the couch and stared at the ceiling. Everything looked so damn polished from the outside. But I knew Lena. She never just moved on. She buried things, then built something new over the ruins, pretending the cracks weren't there. A few days later, my phone rang again. It was Deborah, her mum. "Ethan, honey," she began, her voice soft and hesitant. "I know this might be awkward, but could you maybe talk to Lena? She's been having a hard time at work." I frowned. "What do you mean, a hard time?" "Well," she sighed, "she and Ryan. I don't know, maybe they're having some kind of disagreement. She won't tell me much, but she sounds not herself." I didn't answer right away. My stomach tightened. Disagreement was a vague word, but Deborah's tone said enough. After we hung up, I sat on the couch for a long time, phone still in my hand. I wanted to pretend it wasn't my problem anymore. But a part of me, the part that still remembered her laugh, the way she'd curl her hands around a mug when she was nervous, wouldn't let it go. A few evenings later, I ran into her again. Total accident. I was in line at a grocery store, half distracted, when I saw her a few registers down. She looked ... drained, pale, like she hadn't slept in days. No makeup, oversized coat, hair tied up carelessly. The kind of look you wear when you've given up on pretending everything's fine. Our eyes met. She froze. Then she walked over. "Ethan," she said softly, "can we talk? Just for a minute." We went out to my car. She sat in the passenger seat, hands clasped so tight they were shaking. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Rain tapped against the windshield in a slow, steady rhythm. Finally, she whispered, "I messed up." I didn't say anything. I thought I needed space to find myself, she continued, her voice trembling, but really, I was running away from everything. From pressure, from fear, from you. I thought Ryan understood me, but he's not who I thought he was. She swallowed hard. He's controlling, Ethan. Everything I do. What I wear, who I talk to. Even at work, he makes decisions for me. It's like I'm disappearing again, just in a different way. I turned toward her. Her eyes were red, and for the first time, there was no pride in them, just exhaustion. "I'm not here to ask you to take me back," she said, tears brimming. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for how I left, for how I treated you, for all of it." Her voice cracked on the last word. I let the silence stretch between us until it felt almost heavy enough to break. Then I said quietly, "I get it, but you need to understand. Things can't go back to what they were." She nodded slowly, a tear rolling down her cheek. "I know." We sat there for another minute, listening to the rain. Then she reached for the door handle. "Thank you for listening," she murmured, stepping out. I watched her walk across the parking lot. She got into a silver sedan. Behind the wheel sat Ryan Keller. He glanced at me through the windshield expressionless, but the look in his eyes was sharp, possessive, calculating. Lena said something to him, but I couldn't hear it. Then she looked straight ahead as he started the engine and pulled away. I sat there, alone, the air in the car thick with something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't pain. Not exactly. It was more like the kind of quiet before a storm, the instinct that something ugly was coming, and I'd already been pulled into it, whether I wanted to or not. And deep down, I knew one thing for certain: this wasn't over. It started small little things I could have brushed off if I'd wanted to. A car that seemed to show up on my street a little too often. A new account that followed me on Instagram with no posts, no followers, just a blank profile picture. I didn't think much of it until I saw Lena's name again. One night, about a week after our talk in the car, I got a text. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. "Please don't respond." He checks my phone. I froze. "I didn't mean to drag you back into this, but I don't know who else to talk to." I could feel my heart beat in my throat. I stared at the screen for a long time, unsure whether to reply. Then another message came through. "If anything happens, just remember, I tried," and then nothing. I called the number, but it went straight to voicemail. I texted back, but the messages didn't deliver. She'd either turned her phone off or blocked me. That night, sleep was impossible. Every sound outside felt sharper. I kept thinking about the way she looked in the parking lot, the exhaustion in her eyes, and the way Ryan had stared at me like a warning. The next morning, I drove by the office building where Ryan's firm was located. I told myself I just wanted to make sure she was okay, but that was a lie. I needed to see it for myself to know if my instincts were right, but I'm across the street. I could see her through the glass lobby. She was standing by the front desk, holding some files, trying to smile as Ryan spoke to her, except it wasn't really a conversation. It was one of those moments where one person talks and the other just nods to keep the peace. His body language said everything: arms crossed, stance too close, head tilted in that way people do when they want control disguised as concern. When she walked away, he turned toward the glass. For a moment, I thought he was looking right at me. I stepped back instinctively, my pulse kicking up. That night, Mark came over. He brought beer, as he always did when something felt off with me. I told him everything: the text, the car, the look Ryan gave me. He frowned. "Man, you sure you're not reading too much into this? Maybe you're just still caught up in her, you know?" I hated that he might be right. But then, 2 days later, someone tried to open the gate to my backyard at 2 a.m. The lock held, but I heard it metal rattling, slow, deliberate. By the time I got outside, whoever it was had gone. The next morning, there were tire tracks in the mud along my fence line. That's when I went to the police. I didn't mention names, just said I thought someone was messing around near my property. They took a report, gave me the usual talk about motion lights and cameras. That afternoon, I installed both. For a few days, things went quiet. Then, one evening, I got another text from the same number as before. "I shouldn't be messaging you." But he knows. I typed back fast. Knows what there was. A pause long enough for me to think she wasn't going to answer. Then, that we talked. That you saw us at the store. He said you need to stop interfering. I stared at that sentence until it blurred. He said, not I think, not I'm worried, but he said, that told me everything I needed to know. Ryan wasn't guessing. He knew. That meant he was watching her. Maybe watching me. Maybe both. I tried calling again, but the number was disconnected. That night, I barely turned off the lights. I sat by the window, watching the quiet street, listening for anything that didn't belong. Around 11 p.m., a black sedan drove by. Same make, same color as Ryan's. It slowed near my house, then kept going. And for the first time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't scared. I was too calm. Because when you've already lost the person you love, when you've already watched them disappear once, the idea of someone trying to take more from you stops being terrifying. It just becomes inevitable. I knew this was going to get worse. I just didn't know how fast. 3 days after her last message, Lena disappeared. No social media posts. No one saw her at work. No returned calls. I knew because I tried. Many times. And every time, the cold automated voice answered, "The number you have dialed is unavailable." I went to her office. The receptionist recognized me right away, her voice hesitant. "Lena, quit." I blinked. "Quit? You mean she's on vacation?" The woman shook her head. "No, she turned in her resignation yesterday." I froze. Lena would never just walk away without saying a word. She wasn't the kind of person to run, not even when she was scared. Something wasn't right. Not at all. That night, I found a note slipped under my door. No envelope. No return address. Just a folded piece of paper, faintly scented with her old perfume, the exact one Lena used to wear. Inside were only 3 lines. "Please don't look for me. Everything has already been arranged. I'm sorry." I sat there in the living room, holding that note until midnight. My hands were shaking, but my mind was cold and sharp. The handwriting was off, crooked, trembling. It wasn't hers. And that scent, it wasn't her current perfume. It was the old one, the one Ryan told her to stop wearing because it was cheap and overpowering. Ryan was behind this. I knew it. The next day, I drove to their house. It sat at the end of a quiet street, black iron gate, security cameras everywhere. I parked a few houses away and watched. The light upstairs flicked on. A tall figure walked by the window, broad shoulders, steady stride. Ryan, I waited 2 hours. No sign of Lena, no voices, no movement. Close to midnight, I got out of the car. It was drizzling, the cold autumn wind biting at my neck. My heart was pounding, but my thoughts were steady. Then a sound, the back door creaked open. Lena stepped out. She was wearing a thin coat. Her hair was messy, her face pale and hollow, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me, she froze. For a moment, silence stretched between us. Then she whispered, "You shouldn't be here." I stepped closer. "Lena, what's going on? Are you okay?" She shook her head, voice trembling. "I can't talk. He's always listening. I glanced around and caught a faint glint by the porch's small camera, pointed right at us. I moved closer, ready to grab her hand, but she pulled away. You don't understand. If I leave, he'll destroy you. I don't care, I said, my tone low but firm. I just want you safe. She looked at me then, her eyes filled with something I couldn't name, not just fear, but the quiet surrender of someone who'd already given up. She whispered, barely audible, "It's too late, Ethan." A door slammed open behind her. Ryan appeared composed, white shirt, glass of whiskey in hand. His voice was deep, smooth, cold. "I told you to stop, Ethan, but you just don't listen." I straightened up, locking eyes with him. "She's not your property, Ryan." He smiled and walked down the steps, slowly, deliberately. "You think you're some kind of hero. You don't understand, Lena. She belongs here." Lena stepped back, but Ryan grabbed her wrist. She winced in pain. I moved forward, but Ryan raised his hand. "What's your plan, Ethan? Call the cops. Tell them I'm holding my fiancée hostage." His words froze me. "Fiancé?" I turned to Lena. "You're engaged to him." She didn't answer, just lowered her head. A tear fell to the ground. Ryan smirked, savoring it. "That's right. She chose me. You should respect that." I stared at her, hoping for a denial, a shake of the head, anything. But she said nothing, only silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I turned away, every step heavier than the last. Rain hit my shoulders, cold and sharp. But inside, there was no silence anymore, only anger. I hadn't lost her to another man, I'd lost her to control, to fear, to a manipulator who wore charm like armor. That night, back home, I plugged in my external drive and opened the security footage from my house. At 2 a.m., I saw him, a tall, thin figure in a black coat, standing at my gate. He looked straight into the camera for several seconds and smiled. It was Ryan. I paused the video, staring at the screen. Then I hit play again, froze it on that smile, and leaned closer. "All right," I muttered under my breath. "If it's a game you want, I'll play." I wasn't that weak man anymore. Ever since I saw Ryan on the security camera, something inside me snapped. If I didn't act, Lena would never be free. I started collecting evidence, texts, emails, voice recordings, anything that could tie him to what he'd done. Then, one night, I got an anonymous email with just 3 words. "She's still alive." Attached was a grainy audio clip. Lena's voice trembled. "You said, if I do what you want, you'll leave Ethan alone, right?" Then came Ryan's voice, cold, steady, dangerous. "You know the rules, Lena. Stay here, or he disappears." I sent the recording to Mike, an old friend of mine who worked in law enforcement. He just said, "I'll look into it, but be careful. Guys like him don't fall easily." 3 days later, a text came in. "Tonight, 9 p.m. He's leaving the house. This is your window." I drove to Ryan's place. When his garage light flicked on and the car rolled out, I waited until it was gone, then slipped toward the back door. It wasn't even locked inside. The air was still and cold. I called out softly, "Lena." A faint shadow moved. She stepped into the light, thinner than before, eyes hollow and terrified. "Ethan, you need to go. You don't know what he's capable of." I took her hand. "I know exactly what he is. And I'm not leaving you here. She shook her head. He has cameras. People watching. I cut her off by smashing a tiny red light blinking on the wall. Not anymore. Tears filled her eyes. Then she told me everything. The days of isolation, the threats, the fear that if she tried to leave, Ryan would come after me. I listened in silence, anger simmering in my chest. Then came the sound of a door opening. Ryan was back. I pulled Lena behind the living room door. His footsteps echoed down the hallway, slow and deliberate. His face appeared under the dim light, calm, collected. "You're here, aren't you, Ethan?" I stepped out. "It's over, Ryan," he smirked. "Over. No, this is where it really begins." He lifted his phone and pressed something. The entire house went dark. In the silence I could hear his voice, steady, low, and almost amused. "You don't understand, Ethan. In this house, I make the rules." I turned on the recorder on my phone, took one step forward, and said, "Then let's see what happens when the rule maker breaks his own laws." From somewhere outside, sirens began to wail. In that thick darkness, only Lena's shaky breaths and Ryan's slow, measured footsteps filled the room. I could hear the floor creak beneath him, deliberate, calculated, like he was savoring the fear he thought he still controlled. But this time, he was wrong. I wasn't that same broken man anymore. "You think you're winning," I said quietly, my tone steady. Ryan laughed, low, cold, echoing through the dark. "You don't get it, Ethan. I don't just win. I own everything." Then, a flicker of light, just enough to catch the glint of metal in his hand. A gun, but I was ready. I tossed a small device from my pocket, the tracker watch Mike had given me before I left home. As it hit the floor, sirens blared closer, blue and red lights flashing through the window. Ryan froze. "You called the cops?" I looked him dead in the eye. "No, you did. Every piece of evidence, every recording, it's already been sent." He lunged at me, roaring, but I dodged. We struggled on the floor, the sound of boots outside growing louder. Then a gunshot split the air. Everything went still. When I opened my eyes, Ryan was on the ground, his gun still clutched in his hand, blood spreading beneath him. Lena stood trembling nearby, her face pale and wet with tears. The police burst in. Mike was the first through the door. He looked at me, then at Ryan, and simply said, "It's over." I didn't respond. I turned to Lena instead. She looked up at me, her voice cracking. "I'm sorry, Ethan. All of this, it's my fault." I shook my head. "No, Lena, don't let him win again. You're free now." We stepped out of that house as the first light of morning broke. The world looked washed clean after the rain, quiet, fragile, new. Lena squeezed my hand, and I said nothing. Some wounds never heal. But at least, we were still breathing. Before I got in the car, I looked back one last time. The curtain swayed gently in the dawn breeze. I knew that from this day on, nothing would ever be the same again. But maybe, just maybe, that was finally the beginning.